Tonight, we journey to a place long forgotten by history, a city whose name faded from every map, whose stories were whispered only in dreams. Some say it was called Millhaven, others Ashworth. But the truth is, no one remembers anymore. What they do remember are the stories. Stories of a library that stood at the heart of everything, ancient, silent, always cold. Its windows were tall as cathedral spires. Its halls stretched like the corridors of some forgotten palace. And beneath its marble floors, something was waiting. A woman, neither dead nor truly alive. She slept there for over a century, not in a coffin, not in a tomb, but on a bed made of velvet, surrounded by the flickering shadows of stories long unread. Her name was written in dust across 10,000 pages. Her breath moved through the spaces between words, and her dreams became the dreams of anyone who stayed too long among the books. This is her tale. Close your eyes, let the story carry you. Some journeys are best taken in sleep. They say the town was once a place of great thought. Scholars, poets, madmen, universities sent their brightest minds there to study, to learn, to lose themselves in the pursuit of knowledge. The streets were lined with bookshops, coffee houses, lecture halls where brilliant minds gathered to debate the mysteries of existence. But by 1886, it had become quiet, a place where winters came early and never quite left. The scholars had gone, the poets had vanished, the madmen, well, perhaps they remained. Houses stood empty, their windows dark, their gardens overgrown with wild roses that bloomed black in the moonlight. The only sounds were the whisper of wind through abandoned courtyards and the soft turning of pages in the library. The library remained the heart of the city, even if its heart no longer beat. It was built in stone, quarried from mountains no one could name, the kind of stone that seemed to hold shadows even in daylight. Arching ceilings rose like the ribs of some great beast. Stained glass windows, older than anyone could remember, turned sunlight into the colour of old wine. In summer, the light was amber. In winter, it was the colour of blood. There were only 3 librarians left, all of them old, all of them slow. Mrs. Pemberton had worked there for 40 years. She moved like a ghost between the shelves, never spoke above a whisper, never looked anyone in the eye. Mr. Aldrich had been there even longer. He catalogued books that no one read, filed papers that no one signed. His hands shook when he turned the pages. And then there was Helena. She had pale skin, like candle wax left burning through the night, hair the colour of quiet ash, eyes that seemed to see through things rather than at them. She was young, perhaps 25, perhaps ageless. She didn't speak much, but she hummed, a low, tuneless hum that echoed softly against the stone, like the sound of wind through empty halls. She worked in the northern wing. No one else did. That part of the library had been closed for years, not by rule, but by unease. Books in that wing never stayed in place. You could shelve them at closing time and find them scattered across the floor at dawn. Ink bled, even when dry. Words rearranged themselves when no one was looking. One of the shelves, they said, used to breathe, rise and fall like the chest of a sleeping giant. Mrs. Pemberton claimed she'd seen it. A rhythm, slow, hypnotic. Mr. Aldrich swore he'd heard it whispering in languages that had no names. But Helena didn't mind. She dusted, she hummed, and she never asked questions. Perhaps because she already knew the answers. It was a Tuesday in October, the kind of day when the sky hangs low like a grey wool blanket, when the air tastes of rain and old leaves. Helena arrived at the library as she always did, early, before the sun had burned through the mist. She unlocked the northern wing with a key that was older than the building itself. Black iron, worn smooth by countless hands. The air inside was still. Cold, but not empty, never empty. She began her work, dusting shelves that held books no one had touched in decades, straightening volumes that seemed to move when her back was turned. The titles were strange, written in scripts she didn't recognize, languages that might have been invented by dreamers. The Cartography of Forgotten Places. 7 Methods for Speaking with Shadows. A treatise on the weight of silence. She hummed as she worked, the same melody she'd hummed for years, without words, without beginning or end. Rain began to tap against the stained glass windows. The library smelled like wet parchment, like earth after a storm. Helena bent down to pick up a fallen book when she felt it. A breeze, cold, constant. It moved across her ankles like invisible fingers, gentle, persistent. She stood, looked around the northern wing. The windows were shut. There was no fireplace, no cracks in the stone. The building was solid, had been for over 2 centuries. So where was the wind coming from? She walked slowly through the northern wing, past shelf after shelf of sleeping books. Her footsteps echoed in the silence. The draft grew stronger. It pulled at her skirt, whispered through her hair, led her deeper into the wing, to a section she rarely visited, where the books were bound in leather so old it had turned black. She stopped. The floor breathed. Just a pulse, barely there, but real, like the chest of something vast and sleeping. She knelt and pressed her palm against the wood. The boards were warm, not with heat, but with something else, something alive. A draft slid across her wrist, and something else. Music, very faint, like humming, but she wasn't humming. The melody was different from hers, older, sadder, like a lullaby sung by someone who had forgotten the words. She pressed her ear to the floor. The humming continued, rose and fell like breathing, like the sound of someone singing themselves to sleep. And beneath it, something else. The rustle of silk, the creak of old wood, the whisper of pages turning, as if somewhere below someone was reading. She returned the next day, carrying a crowbar. Not from home, from the library's basement, where broken furniture went to die. No one saw her lift the plank. Mrs. Pemberton was in the eastern wing, cataloguing poetry that no one would ever read. Mr. Aldrich was in his office, filing reports that no one would ever see. The northern wing was hers alone. The board came up easily, too easily, as if it had been waiting. Beneath was darkness, but not empty darkness. Air rose from the opening, warm, scented with old roses and burning wax, and the humming grew louder. She lit a candle, held it over the opening. Beneath the floor was a spiral staircase, carved of stone, the same stone as the library above, but older, worn smooth, like it had been touched by thousands of hands. The steps descended into darkness, but not complete darkness. There was light below, flickering, golden. She descended, each step colder than the last, but not uncomfortable, like stepping into a cool cellar on a summer day. The walls were lined with niches, and in each niche a lantern, old iron, black with age, but lit. The flames danced without wind, cast shadows that moved like living things. She didn't ask how they stayed lit. Some questions are better left unasked. The staircase wound down and down, further than should have been possible. She counted the steps, 50, 100, more. The library above had no basement. The town records showed nothing, but here she was, descending into a place that couldn't exist. At the bottom, she found a door, wooden, carved with symbols she didn't recognize, roses intertwined with thorns, books with their pages spread like wings. The door stood open. Beyond it was a chamber, a room carved into the earth, circular, lined with shelves of books sealed with wax and ribbon. The air was thick with the scent of old paper, dried roses, something else, something sweet and strange. In the center of the room, a desk, mahogany polished to a mirror shine. On the desk, an oil lamp burned with a flame that cast no smoke. Papers were scattered across the surface, covered in handwriting so beautiful it looked like calligraphy. But the words were strange, and beside the desk a bed, iron, 4 posted, draped in red velvet that seemed to glow in the lamplight, and on it a woman. She was beautiful, but not in the way of living things, pale, like ice formed in the heart of winter, like moonlight on fresh snow. Her skin was perfect, unmarked by time or weather, as if she had been carved from marble by a master sculptor. Her hair was long, dark as midnight, spread across the pillow like spilled ink. She wore a dress of deep blue silk, high-necked, long-sleeved, the kind of dress that belonged to another century. Her lips were parted, just slightly, as if she had been about to speak when sleep claimed her. Fingers folded neatly across her chest, like a prayer, like a promise. She didn't breathe. Helena watched for long minutes, waiting for the rise and fall of her chest, the flutter of her eyelids. Nothing, but her skin was warm. Helena could feel it from where she stood, like standing near a gentle fire. At her side was a journal, leather-bound, thick with pages, its edges worn smooth by countless hands. Helena lifted it carefully, as if it might crumble at her touch. The cover was unmarked. No title, no name. She opened it. The first line read, "If I sleep, I am safe." The handwriting was beautiful, every letter a work of art. The ink was dark, fresh, as if it had been written moments before. She turned the page. "If I wake, it remembers me." The words sent a chill down her spine, though she couldn't say why. She read on. "I have been here so long." How long? The seasons change above. I feel them in my dreams. Spring rain, summer heat, autumn wind, winter snow, but here it is always twilight. The handwriting grew smaller, more hurried. They built the library above me. I felt the weight of their stones, heard the whisper of their mortar. But they didn't know. They never knew. I was here first. I am the reason their books never stay in place, why their ink bleeds, why their shelves breathe. I am the dream they dream when they work alone in the northern wing. Helena turned the page, and another, and another. The entries were dated, but the dates made no sense. Some were from decades ago, others from centuries past. 1847. The new librarian hums as she works, the same melody I remember from before the sleep, before the forgetting. 1823. They sealed another section today, found books that wrote themselves, stories that changed each time they were read. They don't understand. The books are dreaming too. 1801. I felt her above me today, a woman with gentle hands. She was reading to a child. The words fell through the floor like warm rain. I almost woke. Almost. The handwriting grew stranger as Helena read. Sentences broken, words crossed out, margins filled with symbols that hurt to look at. The shadows grow longer when I dream. They reach through the walls, touch the books, whisper to the readers, tell them stories that were never written. I am the author of every book that was never finished, the reader of every story that was never told. I am the silence between the words. One phrase appeared again and again, in different inks, different hands, as if written by different people. Or the same person, across many years. Do not wake me, do not wake me, do not wake me. Dozens of times, hundreds. The final entry was dated yesterday. She is coming, the one who hums. She will find the stairs. She will find the door. She will find me. But I must not wake. If I wake, the stories will end, and the world will forget how to dream. Helena read until her candle burned low. The flame flickered, danced, cast strange shadows on the walls. She closed the journal, placed it gently beside the sleeping woman. For a moment, she thought she saw her stir, a flutter of her eyelids, the slight turn of her head. But perhaps it was only the candlelight, playing tricks. She stood, backed away from the bed. The woman slept on, beautiful, peaceful, eternal. Helena climbed the stairs, each step heavier than the last, as if the chamber below was trying to hold her, keep her, make her part of the dream. She reached the top, looked back once. The golden light still flickered below. The humming continued, but softer now, like a lullaby sung to soothe a restless child. She replaced the floorboard, sealed the opening. But she didn't forget. How could she? She never spoke of what she'd seen, never told Mrs. Pemberton or Mr. Aldrich. But she changed. Her humming grew softer, more melody, less tune. She worked differently in the northern wing, gentler, as if she was afraid of waking something. She returned once more, just once. 3 days later, when the library was empty, when the shadows were long, she lifted the board, descended the stairs. The woman still slept, still beautiful, still peaceful. Helena had brought something with her, a red ribbon, silk, the colour of deep wine. She tied it to the bedpost, gently, so as not to disturb the sleeper. A gift, a remembrance, a promise. "I will not wake you," she whispered. "Your dreams are safe." Then she left, climbed the stairs, sealed the opening. Forever? She kept the journal, hidden beneath her floorboards, wrapped in cloth, protected from light and time. She read it sometimes, on winter nights when the wind howled through the empty streets. Each time, new words appeared, new entries, new dates. As if the sleeping woman was still writing, still dreaming, still telling her story. When Helena died, 20 years later, the journal vanished. Her landlord found her room empty, swept clean, as if she had simply dissolved. All that remained was the faint scent of roses and the echo of humming in the walls. The library stood for 35 years after Helena's death. Mrs. Pemberton retired, moved to a cottage by the sea, never spoke of books again. Mr. Aldrich died at his desk. They found him with his head resting on an open ledger, smiling. New librarians came, but they didn't stay long. The northern wing grew stranger. Books rearranged themselves nightly. Shelves breathed in rhythm with something deep below. Visitors reported dreams, vivid, beautiful, terrifying. Dreams of a woman in a blue dress, singing lullabies in a language that didn't exist. Dreams of books that wrote themselves, stories that changed each time they were read. Dreams of sleeping and never wanting to wake. By 1921, the library was abandoned. The town council voted to demolish it, build something new, something without shadows. They brought in machines, wrecking balls, men with hammers and crowbars. The building came down piece by piece, stone by stone. And when they cleared the rubble, they found nothing beneath. No staircase, no chamber, no bed, only untouched earth, clay and stone, as if the building had been built on solid ground. Flat, cold, silent. But one man, Samuel Thorne, the last to walk the site, claimed he saw something strange. A velvet ribbon, red as wine, red as blood, tied to the branch of an oak tree that no longer stood. He reached for it, but his hand passed through, like touching mist, like grasping dreams. The ribbon fluttered in a wind that wasn't there, and for just a moment he heard it, humming, soft, gentle, eternal. The sound of someone singing themselves to sleep. The town is gone now. The library is gone. The stories are gone. But some things persist in the space between sleeping and waking, in the silence between heartbeats. She sleeps still, somewhere, somewhen, dreaming the dreams that keep the world from forgetting. Sleep well tonight. And if you hear humming, in the quiet hours before dawn, if you feel a draught where no wind should be, if you dream of libraries that cannot exist, do not follow. Some stories are meant to stay asleep, and some dreamers are meant to dream forever. This has been the Velvet Archive, where every story is a lullaby, and every ending is just the beginning